One of the quotes that you have in the book, pay attention, choose a direction, arrive at a destination. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Seems like when people think about relationships, they don't really, and this is maybe a stereotype, and I don't mean to be so generic and general and broad, but in the relationships I have, and again, I pastor 13,000 college students at the largest Christian university in the world. And so I see this, not just at Liberty, but I see this everywhere I go when I preach, is that people don't usually tend to think about the direction they want their relationships to go in. And so the quote that we put in the book is, you've got to choose a direction. You've got to figure out the destination that you want to go towards. Instead of just meeting somebody, flirting a little bit, getting their phone number, going out, and then just seeing if it clicks. People are so flippant about the way they do relationships oftentimes, and because they don't really think beforehand, what do I want out of this? What is my goal in this relationship? A lot of folks will go into a relationship like they're test driving a car. I've even heard that terminology used. But when we enter into relationships, the way the human mind and the human heart is wired, the way we are wired is that we begin to care about people. We begin to attach to people. We begin to share and be transparent and open ourselves up to people. And if we go into relationships with a flippant attitude, like, I'm just going to kind of see if this works, and you get attached to them and you share things and you become intimately involved, whether emotionally or in a lot of cases physically and sexually, if that relationship ends without any thought to where the destination of that relationship was heading, then you've got two people who suffer emotionally because of it. They carry that emotional baggage into the next relationship, and if that one doesn't work out, then there's more hurt, there's more harm, and before you know it, we can find ourselves at a destination of emotional bankruptcy. We're angry, we're distrustful of other people, and oftentimes depressed, discouraged, filled with anxiety, gun-shy, afraid of committing to someone. And so if we don't think early on in our relationships about where we want to go, if we don't choose a direction, then we will wind up at a destination somewhere, but it will be a bad place instead of a good place.
Yeah, we always end up somewhere.
Always end up somewhere.
One of the things that when I'm working with singles, especially ones who've had trouble in a relationship, is trying to get them to really make this checklist. What are you looking for? Where do you want a relationship to go? What kind of character qualities? What do you want to see in someone? And to have kind of almost two lists, the list that there are non-negotiables. Yeah. These are some things, I want someone that's a Christian, I want this, and then some things that you could be flexible about. Maybe it's blonde, brunette, something like that. Maybe you prefer a blonde, but this nice brunette comes. Well, that can be flexible. But to have some idea there, so you've got kind of a foundation to look at as you date and as you go into relationships.
And standards are a good thing to have in life. We should have standards. As a Christian, I have certain standards. There are things that, by God's grace, I won't do. There are things I will do. One of my commitments is I will never go out to a meal alone with a woman. I'm just not going to do it. Someone asked me one time, they said, well, don't you trust yourself? And I said, well, actually, no, I don't, because I'm an imperfect person. I'm a sinner. I'm saved by grace, but I could still mess up. And so when we go into relationships at whatever age of our life where we begin to think, I kind of want to settle down. I want to have a family. I want to experience love in a committed relationship. We need to have some standards. When I was 14, I made a list. I'd just become a Christian, and I made a list on a piece of notebook paper of the qualities and the characteristics I'd like to have in a wife. And some of those, like you said, were non-negotiable. She had to be a Christian. She had to be called into ministry because I was called at an early age. There were some non-negotiables. I wanted her to have a sense of humor. I wanted her to look a certain way. I hoped that she would enjoy traveling. And I dated a few girls before I met my wife, and at every point at some point in every one of my previous relationships, either me or the girl had to decide, this isn't going to work. We're not compatible. We don't meet each other's expectations. We're not going in the same direction. Because eventually every relationship winds up one of two ways. You either get married or you break it off. There are no other options for romantic relationships. You're either going to eventually get married or you're going to eventually have to break things off. And so for me, it's so important to set standards and know what your expectations are and have that list of essentials and non-essentials and be willing to fudge a little bit on the things that don't matter that much.
Absolutely. You know, I had kind of my checklist probably when I was 19, and it certainly wouldn't be. It was probably immature in a lot of ways, just because I was 19. I mean, obviously, I wanted someone who was really hot, you know, that was part of it. But I think what I saw when Nancy came into my life, the other ladies that I had dated, girls that I had dated, they might have fulfilled some of the things, but not all of them. And it was kind of like it's a process, and all of a sudden I meet this woman, and we go out, and I see her, and I spend time with her, and I'm going through this checklist in my mind, and I'm thinking, she's hitting all the marks on this. And it was a confirmation for me of, I think this, you know, if this continues to go like I think it's going to go, this is probably the person God has for me. This is a relationship I want to pursue. So it really was, it was really helpful for me in that way.
Yeah. Well, if a person goes to buy a car, they know what they expect. Sure. If a person goes to buy a home, they know what they're looking for. There may be some flexibility in the kind of model they buy or the kind of house they build, but when we go out to make a big purchase, we already have in our minds, based on our personality, based on our likes and our dislikes, we know what we're looking for. In a relationship that hopefully will lead to marriage, we need to know what we're looking for. For me, I knew that there was a certain kind of woman that I would need to spend the rest of my life with because of the career path I was going to take. I knew that God had called me into ministry. By the time I met my wife, I'd traveled in 14 or 15 countries. I'd already been preaching for 10 years when I met my wife. So I knew that the woman I was going to marry had to meet a list. Now, before anybody misunderstands, I'm not advocating that you have to marry a perfect person, because there is no perfect person. There was one, there still is one, Jesus Christ. But you're going to marry a sinner. So in one regard, you can't really find the right person. Everybody marries the wrong person because everybody marries a sinner. But with that said, you can marry someone that's more compatible with you, and hopefully the person you marry is also looking for someone that's compatible with them. If you feel called to do missionary work in a foreign country, then it's probably not a good idea for you to marry a businessman or a businesswoman who wants to spend their time here in the States becoming rich. The two of you may fall in love. You may have a spark, you may have great chemistry, but you're going in different directions. And eventually, it's going to cause the two of you to split.
Right, exactly, exactly.